Today, Mysterious Writings explores the question, what clues gave the exact dig spots for the 3 found casks in the secret treasure hunt? Stay tuned. In 1982, The Secret, a treasure hunt by Byron Priest, was published. This launched an armchair treasure hunt which continues on today. After almost 40 years, 9 of the 12 buried casks remain to be unearthed. Only 3 have been found. These 3 were found in Boston in 2019, Cleveland 2004, and Chicago in 1983. The remaining casks with keys to claim a valuable gemstone are most commonly believed to be buried yet in New York, Roanoke Island, Charleston, St. Augustine, New Orleans, Houston, San Francisco, Milwaukee, and Montreal in Canada. Clues leading to the discovery of the casks are given by a matching verse and image. A link for more is below. While many of the clues are thought to be solved, the exact dig spots are elusive. It doesn't help that many of the locations are in protected areas where digging is prohibited, and that the passing of time has likely affected some of the final clue meanings. But this is a treasure hunt after all. It isn't supposed to be simple, or it wouldn't be considered a treasure once found. So we have to work with what we have, and we do have 3 found casks. What might we be able to learn from them? What clues gave their exact dig spots? Could they help find the others? Let's explore. The Chicago cask of The Secret, found in 1983. The video link below explains the process in which the finders, Eric and Rob, took to find where the cask was buried. It's mentioned in that video. The tower with windmills in the image was first noticed to match the Wooder Tower in Chicago. The statue of the bowman, matching the image, is located at the head of Congress Drive, with a statue of Lincoln nearby. These items led them to the matching verse where additional clues were, where M and B are set in stone, Mozart and Beethoven, and to Congress R is known, where the Roosevelt University building is near. This confirmed the general area for them. Now it was to find the exact spot. The verse continues. L sits and left, beyond his shoulder, is the fair folks' treasure holder. Over the left shoulder of the statue of Lincoln was found the matching fence in the image, leading closer to the treasure. The next lines of the verse are believed to be the clues for giving the exact spot to dig. The end of 10 by 13 is your clue, fence and fixture central to. The remaining lines of the verse confirm the area more. They were, for finding jewel casks, seek the sounds of rumble, brush, and music, hush. Rumble meant near train tracks, brush, the art institute near, music, the Petrillo band shell near, and hush, the secret. Where to dig, that is the question. In the video, we heard Rob saying they dug many holes. Was there something in the verse or image that should have defined the exact location more? The end of 10 by 13 are thought to be referring to trees. Fence and fixture central to seem to help define that spot more. After so many years, it is difficult for the finders to remember exactly where they dug. Was it at the end of the 10th tree, the central spot between the 10th and 13th tree? It's thought there was a fixture on the wall nearby, and the intersecting central point from the fence post to fixture could have pinpointed the spot. In 1983, when they found the treasure, and at the time as kids, it was the treasure and claiming of gemstone that mattered, not the exact and precise location to record. The hunt was over. It didn't matter, until now, when trying to find others and wondering how was it exactly found. Do we know? There are theories. The warts in the image might have offered the final clues for the exact spot to dig. And recently, Dustin and Deidre offered a tantalizing theory that using a shadow of a certain feature on location at a time and date indicated for each paired image and verse determines the exact spot to dig, for not only Chicago, but all of the secret locations. Is that why hush is at the end of this verse? Use the secret. Use the shadow. More on the secret theory in a link below. This theory was tested in Chicago. Rob, the finder of the cask, and friend went back to Grant Park, and at 5 o'clock on May 21st, the time thought to be indicated for this cask, looked for the shadow. The sun wasn't very cooperative, but the next day the sun was more helpful. Using the fence post as the feature to cast the shadow to pinpoint the location, a potential and precise dig spot was given. Was this a spot Rob and Eric dug at in 1983? As mentioned, the exact spot cannot be remembered precisely, but Rob thinks it might have been close, so the shadow theory is very much in play. It might be part of the secret. Sure, it can't be said it's beyond any shadow of doubt, but more testing can be done. This takes us to the Cleveland cask of the secret. What were the clues for its exact dig spot? This cask was found in 2004 by Brian Zinn and Andy Abrams using image 4 and verse 4. I decided to ask them about their thoughts about the location. Question to Andy: did you have any doubt you were at the right spot while digging for the Cleveland cask? What were the most telling clues for exactly where to dig? And when looking at other verses, do you feel the clues for precisely where to dig are given? Andy answers: when we first got to the Greek garden and saw the column and wall, we were blown away, and we knew that if a treasure had been buried, it was there. Before we walked to the wall, we walked to the nearby Italian garden where we took in the arch and lion face fountain, and we also walked past the cup that the senator is holding. And again, these visuals gave us complete confidence that Byron had been to this location and taken photos that he had mailed to Palikar for inclusion in the image. Little did we know that Palikar knew this area so well, as this was one of the treasures that JJP had helped Byron bury. We made our way back to the wall in the Greek garden, and we saw the names Socrates, Pindar, and Apelles on the wall, and it made our hearts beat faster. There was a large rectangular plot on the front side of the wall, but the land was flat all around and nowhere to jump up. And as it turned out, we were not allowed to dig on that side of the wall, as there were chairs being set up for a wedding that day. So we walked around to the back side of the wall, and it was here that we found the area that was sunken and had different levels and steps so that you could stand at the bottom and step up, including the final step that you had to hop to reach the large flower box that was filled with shrubbery. It was rectangular in shape, and we knew in an instant that if the treasure was there, it was going to be in that flower box. The urns that are referenced in the verse were no longer there. Had they been, it would have been one more final visual confirmer. Counting out the stones as the verse detailed, from left to right and from top to bottom, and we had a very specific spot to plant our shovel. We dug for hours to the very bottom and hit pay dirt and concrete, with no cask in sight. Only then did we turn toward the street below, Martin Luther King Boulevard that used to be Liberty, referenced by the bell in the image, and we saw how the road ran along the bottom of this garden and ran along to connect to the next garden, the aforementioned Italian garden. And as it was beneath two countries as the road curves, we shifted our perspective and counted left to right in the other direction, and still came down the specific number of stones in the wall to the opposite side of the large flower box. From there, it was literally 3 pokes with a metal prodder, and we hit the lucite box. So the directions, once followed properly, were incredibly precise. The only thing missing was the actual X that marked the spot. But the instructions, followed correctly, led us right to exactly where we needed to be. I also asked Brian a question. The question to Brian: the image and verse matching the Cleveland cask seems to be a bit more descriptive for providing an exact spot to dig compared to the Chicago cask. Would you agree? Even though it still took time in sorting out and digging. Or how do you feel it compares to the Chicago cask? In hindsight, do you feel the clues provided the precise spot to dig? How deep was the cask? Brian's answer: yes, the instructions for Cleveland are much more detailed than Chicago. Too bad the instructions are backwards. Those who have examined the instructions still debate over whether the instructions are intentionally backwards or if they are just a bit tricky because the instructions are correct if you are standing on the other side of the wall from where the cask is buried. In any event, the instructions are not straightforward, and when you are looking for a small cask, you can be very close and still not find it. The cask was not too deep, about 1.5 feet down. There's not much to add with these accounts. The verse and image led them to the exact place to dig once understood correctly. More on their stories in a link below with Mysterious Writings in Search series. So what about the Boston cask? This cask was found in 2019. None of us know where the exact spot the cask was buried in Boston. The reason is because it was found during construction and renovations to the site of the cask, the baseball field. Huge thanks goes to Jason, though, for alerting the construction workers to look for pieces of the cask and contact him if any were noticed. It is concerning to think that if the construction workers hadn't noticed the pieces in the mound of dirt taken from the baseball field, we wouldn't have this cask to compare other finds with today. The Boston cask would have been lost for all time. Has this happened to others? We have to wonder. Fortunately, we do have this third find to compare past and potential future solutions to, even though the exact spot remains questioned. But can this spot be deduced, now knowing the general area? So what do we know about the find? I realize there is a lot of debate on how to follow the clues to the baseball field. That is for another post. However, once there, which we know we would be because of the cask piece's discovery, what are the clues that tell a searcher exactly where to dig? Here's the verse and image. What is there to define the dig spot? I asked John Michaels quite a while ago this question. So where is it assumed the Boston cask was exactly buried? Sure, it was near home plate, but where there? Could it have been the lines, "Take 5 steps in his direction," from home plate that provided the exact dig spot? John answers, as far as the final dig spot is concerned, that was my thinking exactly per the verse lines. One would think that it even might be 5 steps along the first or third base lines from home plate, or perhaps toward the pitcher. I think that if one extrapolated all the answers for the T and X riddle in the beginning, perhaps that end part would make a bit more sense. Anyone who has digested the book and understands it as a puzzle is still going to have some questions. A little digging is what it says in the limited amount of instructions we are given. This implies that there is a method which lands you right on top of it. Then we have the birth month flowers, the birthstone, and the extra numbers, which haven't been accounted for, as well as the painting of the sun and a clock on the lid of the cask. Talk about having leftover pieces. There's a leftover puzzle here. It seems that too many things have been unaccounted for. It seems that many people made a decided left turn at Albuquerque and missed the road completely, and then somehow joined back up with it 5 miles before the end. I had to drop many theories, even my own, and start over when Boston was confirmed. I realized that something big was missed, and without being able to hop in a DMC-25 and go back to 1982, I don't know if the real solutions will ever be found. Maybe some people in the future will get lucky enough though, like what happened in Boston. And another question for John. Can we assume from J.J. Palancar's appearance on Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates on the Boston episode that although there was an outline of home plate in the image, nothing more was placed in the image to help determine the precise dig spot? No X marks the spot in the image. That those clues for an X must come from the verse. John answers, this is what I was getting at before. It seems like a lot has been missed. You see the progression of the painting on the lid going from blue skies on Rob's 5 o'clock lid to a burnt orange dusk or nighttime scene on the Boston lid, denoting a day and night. All this detail just for you to verify you have a correct month. Hand painting 12 different custom lids, each with a day or night setting, each with a character showing a facial expression over a clock showing the time, just for a verification that you were able to match a birthstone with a month. Obviously, if that image is thematic, it ties the theme together. If not, it's a clue to the theme. This is why I take the time to look at something as wild as the shadow theory, because it answers a lot of those questions and is not new to treasure hunting. Kit Williams wasn't the first to use that technique. Yes, I believe we have obviously looked over something. I don't know if it's a technique like using a shadow to point out a spot on the ground on a certain month, or if it's something else which he was trying to teach us in the book. I don't personally believe that John Palancar knows the dig spots. I believe he knows the city and park, and he knows, or at one time knew, of the things that Byron gave to him to insert into the image. But I think that only Byron knew the exact dig spots, and I believe that Byron devised all kinds of puzzles based on John's work along with his own prose to put them out there. As someone who has made puzzles, almost anything can be interpreted as a clue, even things you've never dreamed of. I'm sure people are stumbling over things which weren't intended to even be clues. The S, which JJP pointed out to be the S in Boston, I had matched to a building in Charlesgate, which was directly across the street from another grouping of image matches. It turns out John was just making a stylized S. These kinds of general clues, which add continuity to the puzzle in the city, also tend to throw people off, and I think it's intentional. I think BP had one general method to solving these, and if you stray just a little, one's curiosity tends to take over. Was it a mark of genius or a happy accident? In any case, the Boston find should have been a wake-up call to everyone to go back and re-examine everything. So can we conclude anything from these 3 found casks? Some observations or questions still. In the image, is there always an exact match to something very close to the dig spot? Like in Chicago, the fence and fixture, Cleveland, the columns, Boston, the home plate. And another question, with the general location known, from using both image and verse, is it the verse only that provides the exact location to dig? Chicago, end central, Cleveland, beneath 9th row, and Boston, 5 steps. It seems in many of the verses the dig spot is being mentioned not at the end, but before. This is interesting to me. While the image and verse do provide a location, it seems to do so not so much in a step-by-step order, but by providing an overall picture of what is found near and around the dig site. At any time during the verse, it seems the exact dig spot could be given, especially if the dig spot for Boston cask was determined by taking 5 steps. Not saying it was, but what if? To me, it sometimes seems as if Byron stands at the spot he buried the cask and describes items around it, what brought him here, while weaving in clues for the exact spot to dig, instead of walking a searcher on a path to the dig spot and describing it that way, at least for some. I wanted to ask George Ward his thoughts about the 3 found casks. I asked him the question, can any summary be given about them? Here's George's answer. The 2 most important things we can learn from the 3 found casks are simplicity and similarity. Each of these puzzles worked basically the same way. The paintings took you to a general area, and the verse took you to the cask. They didn't require complex triangulation, nothing needed to be graphed, there were no detailed map overlays. Every clue in the painting was large, in your face, and in hindsight obvious. The fence post in Chicago was obviously the fence post in the painting. The planter in Cleveland was obviously the planter in the painting. No one needed a magnifying glass to find clues. They were right there in front of us the whole time. It only took one person to see them differently. Same with each verse. Each line was obviously describing something concrete on site. Feel at home is obviously home plate. M&B is right there on the orchestra hall, carved in stone, never to fade away. The solved verses had no rabbit holes to jump down. They don't require you to make any grand connections to historical figures, then follow their path through the past. You don't need to study the philosophies of Socrates, Pindar, Apelles to solve Cleveland. In fact, the solved verses do not require you to open a book at all. They simply ask that you find the right area and follow their very direct but obscure instructions. If there is only one thing that people learn from the solved puzzles, I sincerely hope it's this. Think simply, follow the verse, and be the one person who sees it all differently. I think I'll leave it at that. There's a lot more to discuss on these found casks and how they might help. We'll look into more later. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time here at Mysterious Writings as we continue to talk about all things treasure.